At 7 tomorrow morning, replace his heart medication. He will never know. The Russian words sliced through the silence so sharply that Maya Brooks almost dropped the silver tray in her hands. The crystal water glasses rattled softly against polished metal. She froze outside the half-open office door, heart hammering hard enough to sting her ribs. Inside, warm amber light spilled across dark walnut floors. A woman laughed quietly. Calm. Controlled. Familiar. Maya knew that voice. Mrs. Victoria Whitmore. Her employer. The billionaire's wife. And if he notices? A male voice asked in Russian, low and nervous. Victoria exhaled slowly. Ice cubes clinked in a glass. Edward trusts me, she said. He always does. Maya stopped breathing. Heat rushed into her face. Her father used to speak Russian in the kitchen when he did military translation work. She had grown up hearing every syllable, every shift in tone. There was no mistake. This was not gossip. This sounded dangerous. Very dangerous. The grandfather clock at the end of the hallway ticked once. Twice. Maya stepped back slowly, careful not to let her shoes squeak against the marble floor. But then the tray slipped. One spoon hit the edge with a sharp metallic click. Silence. Absolute silence. Inside the office, the voices stopped. Maya's stomach dropped. The office door opened halfway. Victoria Whitmore stood there in silk cream pajamas, one hand wrapped around a crystal glass. Her blue eyes lowered immediately to Maya's uniform. Then the tray. Then back to Maya's face. Still here? Victoria asked coolly. I thought staff knew better than to wander upstairs after 9. Maya swallowed hard. I was just collecting dishes, ma'am. Victoria stared at her for one long second. The kind that made a person feel smaller than dust. Then collect them quietly. Her voice softened into something worse than anger. Condescension. People do not pay maids to listen. The door closed. Maya stood frozen in the hallway, fingers trembling against cold silver. Her reflection stared back at her in the dark window beside the staircase. Invisible. That was what she had learned to become inside the Whitmore mansion. Invisible. Women survived. Invisible women kept their jobs. But invisible women also did not sleep well after hearing conversations about medication replacements and men who would never know. Rain tapped softly against the floor-to-ceiling windows as thunder rolled somewhere far beyond the hills of Connecticut. Downstairs, the mansion hummed quietly with expensive silence. Air vents whispered overhead. Somewhere in the west wing, a wine refrigerator clicked on. Maya moved toward the staff staircase, but her legs felt strangely heavy. Then she heard footsteps. Slow. Sharp. Deliberate. Edward Whitmore appeared at the end of the hallway, 6 feet 3 inches of tailored authority, sleeves rolled once, jaw tense from another late business call. He barely glanced at her. Why are you standing here? He asked flatly. Maya opened her mouth. Closed it again. This was not her place. He was the billionaire. She cleaned fingerprints off his glass doors. Nothing, sir, she said quietly. Edward looked annoyed already. Then do not block the hallway. He walked past her without another glance. But halfway to his bedroom, he paused. Behind him, Maya's voice came out before she could stop it. Small. Nervous. Dangerous. Sir? Edward turned slowly. What? Maya's hands tightened around the tray so hard her knuckles hurt. Tomorrow morning. Her throat tightened. Please do not take your medication. Edward's expression changed instantly. Cold. Confused. Then offended. Excuse me? From somewhere upstairs, a floorboard creaked. And Maya suddenly realized someone else had been listening. Edward Whitmore stared at her like she had just crossed an invisible line no one in the house was allowed to touch. The hallway suddenly felt smaller. Colder. Rain rattled softly against the tall windows while warm light spilled across polished marble between them. My medication? He repeated slowly. Why exactly would my maid be telling me what medicine to take? Maya's throat tightened. Upstairs, another floorboard creaked. Someone was still there. Listening. Watching. Sir, I heard something, she said carefully. Something I think you need to know. Edward let out a sharp breath through his nose. Tired. Irritated. Dangerous in the quiet way rich men became when their time felt wasted. If this is about staff gossip, save it. He turned halfway toward his bedroom. Maya's pulse hammered harder. If she backed down now, tomorrow morning could happen exactly the way they planned. It was Russian, she blurted out. Edward stopped. Not because he believed her. Because he looked genuinely confused. Russian? His voice dropped lower. What are you talking about? Before Maya could answer, heels clicked softly behind them. Slow. Elegant. Victoria Whitmore stepped into the hallway, silk robe tied neatly at her waist, expression calm enough to make Maya's stomach twist. Everything all right? She asked sweetly, though her eyes never once looked kind. Edward glanced back. Apparently, he said dryly. The maid has concerns about my health. Victoria's lips curved into a small smile. Not warm. Sharp. Oh? Her gaze landed on Maya now. And since when are we diagnosing billionaires between vacuuming sessions? Heat rushed into Maya's face. Humiliation burned hotter because Edward said nothing. He simply stood there, watching. Waiting to see if she would embarrass herself. I overheard a conversation, Maya said quietly. Someone said tomorrow at 7 your medication would be changed. Silence. Victoria blinked once. Then laughed softly. Almost pitying. Edward, she said, shaking her head. This is exactly why boundaries matter. She looked directly at Maya now, voice cooling by the second. Listening outside private doors is not part of your job description. Maya swallowed hard. I was not listening. I heard it while collecting dishes. Convenient, Victoria replied. Edward rubbed his jaw slowly. Frustration flashed across his face. You speak Russian? He asked Maya suddenly. Maya hesitated. Yes, sir. Victoria laughed again, this time louder. Of course she does. She folded her arms. And tomorrow she will probably tell us she works for the CIA too. Edward's expression shifted slightly. Doubt. Curiosity. Annoyance. Say it, he said finally. What exactly did you hear? Maya's hands trembled against the silver tray. Upstairs, she thought she saw movement. Near the shadows at the landing. A figure pulling back just out of sight. Her chest tightened. At 7 tomorrow morning, she said carefully, voice almost shaking now. Replace his heart medication. He will never know. Edward's jaw locked instantly. Victoria's smile disappeared for half a second. Just half a second. But Maya saw it. Fear. Tiny. Fast. Gone again. This is insane, Victoria said quickly, stepping closer to Edward. She probably heard a television or misunderstood something. But Edward was not looking at his wife anymore. He was looking at Maya. Really looking at her for the first time. Repeat it, he said quietly. Maya did. This time in perfect Russian. Every word. Every pause. Every tone. The mansion went silent. Even the rain seemed quieter. Victoria's hand tightened almost invisibly against the silk at her waist. Edward did not blink. Then, from upstairs, a male voice suddenly echoed through the dark hallway. Calm. Unfamiliar. She translated it correctly. The sound of polished dress shoes echoed slowly from the upstairs landing. One step. Then another. Everyone turned. Edward Whitmore's private physician, Dr. Nathan Cole, emerged from the shadows, one hand resting lightly against the oak railing, expression unreadable. The hallway suddenly felt too warm. Too still. She translated it correctly. Nathan repeated, eyes moving from Maya to Victoria. Word for word. Victoria's face did not crack, but something colder settled behind her eyes. Nathan, she said softly, too softly. You are making this dramatic. Edward stared between them. You speak Russian now, too? Nathan exhaled once. I spent 6 years in Moscow during my residency. Silence hit the hallway hard. Maya tightened her grip on the silver tray until the metal edge bit into her palm. She had expected ridicule. Maybe termination. Not backup. Not this. Victoria stepped forward with a smile that looked almost perfect. Almost. Edward, this is absurd. We are standing in a hallway listening to gossip from staff. Staff. The word landed like something dirty. Maya felt it. The familiar humiliation. Invisible again. Small again. Edward rubbed his temples slowly. His pulse visibly flickered in his neck. Nathan, he said quietly, tell me exactly what she said. Nathan repeated the Russian sentence without hesitation. Perfect pronunciation. No pause. No doubt. Edward's expression darkened. And what does that mean to you? Nathan hesitated for the first time. Just enough to make the air shift. It sounds like medication tampering, he admitted carefully. But context matters. Victoria let out a short laugh of relief. Exactly. She crossed her arms. Finally, someone reasonable. But Maya could feel something was wrong. Nathan's eyes had not met Edward's once. Not really. They kept drifting toward Victoria. Tiny glances. Quick. Nervous. Like a man checking for approval without realizing he was doing it. Maya's stomach tightened. Edward noticed it too. The billionaire's face hardened by 1 degree. Context, he repeated slowly. Funny word. Thunder rolled outside deeper now. The chandelier lights flickered for half a second before stabilizing. Somewhere downstairs, a security system beeped faintly. Then Edward turned to Maya again. How sure are you? Maya swallowed. This was the moment. The dangerous one. Completely sure, sir. Victoria scoffed quietly. Based on what? A maid overhearing half a conversation? Maya's cheeks warmed, but this time she did not look away. No, ma'am. Her voice steadied. Based on growing up translating Russian military broadcasts with my father because he could not afford babysitters. That landed harder than she expected. Even Edward blinked. Victoria's smile disappeared again. Nathan shifted awkwardly. Edward folded his arms. Really looked at Maya now. You are telling me, he said carefully, that the woman cleaning my house speaks fluent Russian and somehow no one knew? Maya gave a small shrug. No one asked? Silence. Heavy. Uncomfortable. Somewhere upstairs, rain slid down glass in soft streaks, reflecting silver light across the hallway walls. Edward's phone buzzed suddenly in his pocket. He glanced down. His expression changed instantly. What is it? Victoria asked too quickly. Edward did not answer. He stared at the screen another second. Then slowly looked back up at Nathan. That is strange, he said quietly. My overnight nurse just texted me. Nathan's jaw tightened. Barely noticeable. She says someone already changed tomorrow morning's medication. Nobody moved. Nobody breathed. Then Edward lifted his eyes toward Maya. For the first time all night, there was no irritation left in them. Only one terrifying question. Maya, he said slowly, how long ago did you hear that conversation? How long ago? Edward's voice came out lower now. Tighter. Dangerous in a completely different way. Maya glanced toward the antique clock near the staircase, its brass pendulum cutting softly through the silence. About 40 minutes ago, sir. The temperature in the hallway seemed to drop. Edward looked immediately toward Nathan. And my medication was already changed? Nathan swallowed once. That is what the nurse texted. Victoria stepped in fast. Too fast. Edward, this is spiraling. Her laugh sounded thinner now, stretched too tightly. You are trusting a maid over your own wife? The word maid landed hard again, sharp enough to sting. Maya lowered her eyes for half a second. Old instinct. Stay small. Stay quiet. But something felt wrong. Not just dangerous. Wrong. Her gaze shifted instinctively toward Nathan's hands. Trembling. Barely visible, but there. A doctor trained to stay calm should not have been shaking. Edward noticed too. His jaw tightened. Nathan, he said carefully, why exactly is my nurse texting me at midnight about medication changes? Nathan adjusted his glasses too quickly. Probably routine protocol. Probably? Edward repeated. The chandelier reflected cold silver across the lenses of his glasses, making his expression unreadable. Downstairs, footsteps echoed faintly. Staff whispering. Someone had already sensed something was wrong. Victoria folded her arms. Enough. Her voice sharpened. This house is not turning into some ridiculous conspiracy because someone overheard half a sentence. Maya's fingers curled tighter against the tray. Half a sentence. No. There had been more. A tiny detail her brain had refused to let go of. Something buried in the tone. The phrasing. Her father always said language revealed intention long before truth arrived. Maya looked up slowly. Sir? Edward turned immediately now. Not irritated anymore. Focused. What? Maya hesitated. If she was wrong, she was finished. Fired by sunrise. But if she was right. The sentence sounded rehearsed. Victoria scoffed. What does that even mean? Maya swallowed. Native Russian speakers do not usually phrase it that way. Nathan went still. Completely still. Maya felt her heartbeat climb into her throat. It sounded translated. She continued quietly. Like someone repeating instructions they memorized. Not someone speaking naturally. Silence crashed into the hallway. Nathan's face changed. Fast. Tiny. But enough. Edward saw it instantly. Nathan, Edward said softly now. Too softly. Look at me. Nathan did not. Victoria stepped closer to her husband. Edward, please. Her hand reached for his arm. He moved away. Small movement. Huge meaning. Look at me. Edward repeated. Nathan exhaled sharply. Edward, did you prescribe something new? Nathan stayed quiet. Thunder rolled louder outside. Somewhere in the West Wing, a coffee machine hissed to life automatically, absurdly normal against the silence swallowing the hallway whole. Maya could hear her own breathing now. Sharp. Uneven. Victoria's jaw tightened. Nathan, she snapped suddenly, too quickly. Say something. That was it. Too fast. Too defensive. Edward turned slowly toward his wife. Really turned this time. His expression had changed. No warmth left. No trust either. Why are you answering for him? Victoria opened her mouth. Closed it again. For the first time all night, she looked cornered. Nathan removed his glasses slowly, rubbing a hand across his face. Sweat gleamed at his temple beneath the chandelier light. Edward, he said quietly, I think we should discuss this privately. Maya's stomach dropped. Wrong answer. Completely wrong. Edward laughed once. Short. Empty. Privately? He repeated. My maid just warned me I might not wake up tomorrow morning, and now my doctor suddenly wants privacy. Downstairs, someone whispered. A phone camera lit briefly before disappearing behind the staircase corner. Staff were watching now. Listening. Victoria's voice sharpened instantly. This is humiliating. Edward turned toward her. Humiliating? His voice cracked colder than Maya had ever heard. You know what is humiliating? Realizing the only person in this house who bothered paying attention was the woman cleaning my floors. The hallway went silent. Maya froze. She had never heard someone like Edward Whitmore defend someone like her. Not once. Then Edward's phone buzzed again. He looked down. His face drained of color. Slowly, he lifted the screen toward Nathan. Security footage. Timestamp, 11:37 p.m. The medication cabinet door opening. Nathan standing there alone. The hallway went dead silent. Even the rain outside seemed to stop. Edward Whitmore stood frozen, the pale blue glow of his phone reflecting against his face as security footage played again. And again. Timestamp, 11:37 p.m. Nathan Cole opening the medication cabinet. Alone. No nurse. No staff. Just him. Victoria moved first. This proves nothing, she said sharply, stepping closer. Too close. Too fast. Doctors access medication all the time. Her voice cracked slightly on the last word. Edward did not look at her. Nathan, he said quietly, dangerously quietly, tell me why my doctor is sneaking into my medication cabinet close to midnight. Nathan swallowed hard. Sweat glistened near his collar now. Edward, listen to me. No. Edward's voice echoed harder against the marble walls. Staff downstairs stopped moving entirely. Somewhere near the staircase, someone's phone camera clicked on again, screen glowing in the dark. You explain, Edward said, lifting the phone. Right now. Nathan opened his mouth. Closed it. Victoria stepped between them instantly. Enough, she snapped. This is humiliating. Edward finally looked at her. Really looked. You keep using that word, he said coldly. Humiliating. His jaw flexed once. Do you know what humiliating feels like? His eyes flicked briefly toward Maya. Realizing the person trying hardest to keep me alive is the one I barely bothered to see. Maya froze. Heat rushed into her chest. No one had ever spoken about her like that inside this house. Not once. But Victoria's expression hardened immediately. You are trusting her? She asked quietly. Sharp. Controlled anger now. A maid? The word hit harder this time because everyone heard it. Staff at the stairs. Security near the front hall. Nathan standing frozen. Maya felt dozens of invisible eyes move toward her. Judgment. Doubt. Curiosity. Small again. She hated how familiar it felt. Edward ran a hand through his hair, breathing harder now. Someone touched my medication, he said. Someone I trusted. Thunder cracked outside. The chandelier trembled faintly. Somewhere deeper in the house, a security alarm beeped once. Short. Strange. Maya's stomach dropped instantly. Sir? She said quietly. No one listened. Nathan stepped forward suddenly. Edward, if you calm down, I can explain. Then explain. Edward snapped. Nathan's face tightened. I changed the medication because your blood work came back abnormal. Silence. Victoria exhaled sharply like relief had just returned to her body. There, she said quickly. See? Edward looked unconvinced. At midnight? Nathan hesitated. Too long. Maya noticed it instantly. So did Edward. And why would my nurse text me saying she never approved any medication changes? Edward asked quietly. Nathan's face strained of color. Completely. Maya's pulse climbed again. Wrong answer. He did not have one. Then suddenly Maya remembered something. Tiny. Strange. Earlier that night, while collecting glasses near the kitchen, she had overheard staff whispering about the overnight nurse leaving unexpectedly. Her heart skipped. Sir? She said louder this time. Edward turned immediately now. Everyone did. Your nurse, Maya said carefully. Was she supposed to be here tonight? Edward frowned. Of course. Maya swallowed. Because the staff downstairs said someone sent her home around 10. The hallway stopped breathing. Victoria turned too quickly. What? Edward's eyes narrowed instantly. Who sent her home? Maya hesitated. Her hands trembled. I did not hear a name. Victoria folded her arms tighter. This is getting ridiculous. But Nathan looked terrified now. Not nervous. Terrified. Edward noticed. Nathan, he said quietly. Who sent my nurse? Home? Nathan stepped back once. Small movement. Huge mistake. Edward. His voice cracked. You need to understand. Then suddenly the house lights flickered. Once. Twice. The security system beeped louder downstairs. A guard shouted something near the front entrance. Fast footsteps echoed across marble. One of Edward's security officers appeared at the end of the hallway, breathing hard. Sir, he said urgently, eyes darting between everyone. We have a problem. He looked directly at Edward. Then at Victoria. Someone just tried to erase the security footage. Someone tried to erase the footage? Edward's voice dropped so low the hallway somehow felt colder. The security officer nodded once, breathing hard. About 3 minutes ago. Remote access attempt. Whoever did it almost wiped the camera archive. Nobody moved. Nobody even seemed to blink. Rain slid slowly down the towering windows, silver streaks catching in the chandelier light like cracks spreading through glass. Victoria crossed her arms tighter. Too tight. This is unbelievable, she said softly, though something brittle had crept into her voice. We are turning one misunderstanding into paranoia. Edward did not answer. His eyes stayed fixed on Nathan. Nathan looked pale now, shoulders tight, one hand gripping the stair railing hard enough for his knuckles to whiten. Maya noticed something strange. He was not looking at Edward anymore. He kept glancing toward Victoria. Tiny movements. Fast. Nervous. Like he was waiting for someone else to save him. The mansion had gone eerily quiet. Downstairs, staff no longer whispered. Even the security guards stood still, radios muted against their belts. Somewhere in the garage below, the hum of an expensive engine slowly faded into silence after cooling down, metal ticking softly in the distance. Maya could hear breathing now. Edward's heavier than before. Nathan's uneven. Victoria's too controlled. Then Edward finally spoke. Lock down the house. The security officer hesitated only a second. Yes, sir. Footsteps echoed quickly down the marble staircase. Doors clicked shut somewhere downstairs. A soft electronic chime followed. The Whitmore estate had just become a sealed box. Victoria let out a quiet laugh that sounded nothing like amusement. Edward. She stepped closer, lowering her voice. Softer now. More dangerous. Do you hear yourself? He still did not look at her. Someone tampered with my medication. Allegedly. Someone tried to erase security footage. Still not proof. Edward finally turned. Slowly. Tiredness sat heavier on his face now. Something deeper too. Fear, maybe? Or betrayal arriving in slow motion. You know what scares me? He asked quietly. I do not know who I am supposed to trust anymore. That landed harder than shouting ever could. Victoria's expression flickered. Just for a second. Hurt. Panic. Anger. Then gone. Maya stayed still near the staircase, tray resting against her side now, palms damp with sweat. Every instinct she had learned said disappear. Stay invisible. But something about the room felt unfinished. Wrong. Like everyone had focused on the wrong danger. Her eyes drifted toward Edward's phone still glowing faintly in his hand. The security footage timestamp. 11:37. Her chest tightened. Sir? She said quietly. Nobody interrupted her this time. That alone felt strange. Edward turned immediately. What? Maya hesitated. The entire hallway seemed to lean toward her now. Security guards. Staff downstairs. Nathan. Victoria. Everyone waiting. Watching. The footage, she said carefully. It does not make sense. Nathan stiffened instantly. Victoria's jaw tightened. Edward frowned. Explain. Maya swallowed once. If someone wanted to hurt you. Her voice softened. Steadier now. Why try to erase the footage after we discovered it? Silence. Heavy. Nathan looked away. Victoria did not move. Maya continued, slower this time. Whoever did that knew we were already suspicious. Edward's expression changed slightly. Thinking now. Listening. Really listening. Meaning? He asked. Maya's fingers tightened against the tray. Meaning the person trying to cover this up. She looked slowly toward the dark upstairs hallway. Toward the office where she first heard the Russian voices. Might still be inside the house. The words landed like ice water. Nobody spoke. Somewhere. Deep in the estate, a door clicked shut. Slow. Quiet. Almost careful. Every head turned toward the sound. Then Edward's phone vibrated again. Once. Sharp against the silence. He looked down. The color drained from his face immediately. No one breathed. Slowly, he lifted the screen. A text message from his private nurse. Sent 30 seconds ago. Mr. Whitmore, I never left tonight. Someone locked me inside the guest house. The hallway stopped breathing. Edward Whitmore stared at the message on his screen like the floor beneath him had shifted 6 inches sideways. I never left tonight. Rain tapped softly against the glass behind him, slow and cold now, while somewhere deep in the estate a ventilation motor hummed unevenly, metal settling with faint clicks inside the walls. Nobody moved. Victoria's expression tightened first. Tiny. Fast. Then gone. That is impossible, she said quietly. Too quietly. Edward looked up slowly. Impossible? His voice sounded different now. Hollowed out. Dangerous. Someone locked my nurse in the guest house. Silence swallowed the staircase whole. Staff downstairs had stopped pretending not to listen. A phone camera glowed near the marble railing before quickly disappearing. Nathan looked pale enough to disappear into the walls himself. Maya noticed something else now. Victoria was not scared of being accused. She was scared of timing. Her eyes kept drifting toward the grandfather clock near the hallway. Tick. 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 Maya's chest tightened. 7 a.m. The medication. The sentence. It had never been random. Sir? Maya said quietly. Edward turned immediately now. No irritation. No distance. Just focus. What? Maya stepped closer than she had ever stood near him before, tray forgotten at her side. The timing matters. Victoria scoffed instantly. Please. But Edward held up a hand without looking at his wife. The movement alone changed everything. Victoria froze. Maya noticed the silence after that. The house noticed too. The Russian sentence, Maya continued carefully. It was too specific. She could hear her father's voice in her memory now. Translation is not words. Translation is intention. They said 7 in the morning. Edward frowned. My medication schedule starts at 7. Exactly. Maya nodded once. Calm now. Scary calm. If someone wanted to hurt you quietly, they would not need tonight. Her voice lowered. They only needed tomorrow morning. Nathan shifted suddenly. Too suddenly. Edward noticed. Nathan, he said quietly. Stop moving. Nathan froze. Victoria crossed her arms tighter. Edward, this is insanity. But her voice trembled now. Tiny fracture. Finally visible. Edward laughed once. No humor in it. Insanity? He turned toward her slowly. You know what feels insane? His jaw flexed. Standing in my own house, realizing the only person connecting this together. He looked directly at Maya. Really looked. Is the woman everyone here treated like furniture? The silence after that hit harder than shouting. Maya felt heat rise into her chest. Not pride. Something stranger. Seen. For the first time all night, staff downstairs were not staring at her with pity. Or suspicion. They were waiting. Listening. One of the guards lowered his radio completely. Nathan rubbed trembling hands together. Edward, he said quietly. You are making a mistake. Maya turned toward him instantly. There. Something in his tone. Wrong. Desperate. No, Maya said softly. Everyone looked at her. Even Nathan stopped breathing for half a second. He already made the mistake. Her eyes shifted toward Victoria. Hours ago. Victoria's composure cracked. Excuse me? Maya did not flinch. You said something earlier? Victoria blinked once. What? Maya's voice stayed calm. Too calm. You asked how I knew what medication sounded like? Edward frowned immediately. You did say that. Victoria's face changed. Fast. No, I never said medication. Maya interrupted quietly. I said someone planned to replace something tomorrow morning. Silence. Total. Brutal. Edward turned slowly toward his wife. You knew it was medication, he said. Victoria opened her mouth. Nothing came out. Nathan looked like he wanted to disappear through the floor. Downstairs, someone whispered, "Oh my God!" A phone camera lifted again. Nobody stopped it this time. Edward stepped back once like something inside him had finally cracked open. He looked at Victoria differently now. Not angry. Worse. Hurt. Real hurt. Tell me, he said quietly. Please tell me there is another explanation. Victoria's breathing changed. Faster now. Uneven. She looked toward Nathan instinctively. Huge mistake. Edward saw it. Everyone saw it. Then suddenly the mansion lights dimmed once. The security system beeped sharply downstairs. One of the guards touched his earpiece, face draining of color. Sir? His voice came out strained. Someone just opened the medical cabinet again. The entire hallway turned at once. The medical cabinet? Edward's voice came out almost hollow now, like something inside him had already broken before the truth fully arrived. The security guard touched his earpiece again, breathing unevenly. Motion sensor triggered 30 seconds ago, sir. Basement wellness room. Nobody moved for half a heartbeat. Then Edward started walking. Fast. Shoes striking marble hard enough to echo through the mansion like warning shots. Security followed immediately. Nathan hesitated. Victoria stood frozen for 1 second too long. Maya noticed. That 1 second told her everything. The elevator ride down felt strangely silent. Only the faint hum of machinery. The quiet vibration of steel cables beneath their feet. Nobody spoke. Edward stood in front, jaw clenched, hands shaking just slightly now. Not rage anymore. Fear. Real fear. Maya stood near the back holding the silver tray without even realizing she still had it. Nathan kept wiping his palms against his slacks. Victoria stared straight ahead, face unreadable, but her breathing had changed. Too shallow. Too quick. The basement hallway smelled faintly of polished concrete and sterile chemicals. Cold white lights reflected against brushed steel doors. Somewhere nearby, medical refrigeration units hummed softly, steady and indifferent. The security officer pushed open the wellness room door. Empty. Too empty. The medication cabinet sat open under fluorescent light. One drawer halfway out. A single bottle resting on the counter like someone had left in a hurry. Edward stepped closer slowly. The room had gone completely still. Behind him. He picked up the bottle. His hands stopped moving entirely. This? His voice nearly disappeared. This is not mine. Silence crashed into the room. Nathan shut his eyes briefly. Tiny movement. Huge meaning. Victoria turned away. Edward looked back toward him. Not furious now. Devastated. You replaced it, he said quietly. Nathan lowered his head. Nobody defended him this time. No excuses. No clever explanations. Just the sound of ventilation humming overhead. Then Nathan finally spoke. Quiet. Cracked. I did. The room shifted. Staff near the doorway exchanged stunned looks. Someone's phone camera lowered slowly like reality itself had become heavier than gossip. Edward blinked once, hard. Why? Nathan swallowed. Because. He glanced toward Victoria instinctively. Again. Edward saw it. Everyone saw it. Victoria looked away immediately. Nathan's shoulders sagged. I was told your medication was hurting your recovery, he said quietly. I was told it would only be temporary. Edward laughed once. Soft. Empty. Told by who? Nathan did not answer. He did not need to. The silence pointed all by itself. Victoria finally turned back. Her composure had cracked completely now. Edward, she said softly, voice trembling for the first time all night. Please. He looked at her differently now. Like someone seeing a stranger wearing a familiar face. You knew, he said quietly. Not anger. Worse. Heartbreak. She opened her mouth. Nothing came out. Maya stayed near the doorway still. Quiet. The center of gravity without asking to be. Staff who had once looked through her now looked toward her first. Even security glanced at her like she had seen the invisible thread before anyone else. Edward slowly turned toward Maya. The fluorescent light caught in his tired eyes, making them look older than before. You warned me, he said quietly. And I treated you like... He stopped himself. Shame landed hard enough to silence the room again. Maya lowered her gaze briefly. You were scared, sir, she said softly. No anger. No triumph. Just truth. That somehow hit harder than blame. Edward exhaled sharply, looking away like he could not quite stand the weight of his own mistake. One of the housekeepers near the back whispered under her breath, almost in disbelief. She saved him. Nobody corrected her. Nobody laughed. Then Edward did something no one expected. In front of everyone, staff, guards, doctor, wife, he stepped aside and moved out of Maya's path. Small gesture. Massive meaning. Respect. Real respect. But before anyone could speak again, Maya's eyes shifted back toward the counter. Toward the medication bottle. Something about it felt wrong. Her stomach tightened instantly. Slowly she stepped closer. Picked it up. Read the label once. Then again. The color drained from her face. Sir? Her voice came out quieter than before. Sharper too. Edward turned immediately. What? Maya looked up slowly. This bottle. She swallowed once. It was never meant for you. Maya held the bottle carefully beneath the cold fluorescent light, fingers steady even as the room around her seemed to tilt. The hum of the refrigeration units had softened now, quieter somehow, like even the machines were waiting. Edward stepped closer. Slowly. Cautiously. What do you mean? He asked. His voice no longer sounded like the man from upstairs. No edge. No command. Just exhaustion. Maya turned the label toward him. This prescription, she said softly, belongs to someone with severe arrhythmia. Her eyes lifted to his. Calm. Certain. You do not have that condition. Silence settled hard across the room. Nathan closed his eyes briefly. Victoria looked down. No arguments left. No performance either. Edward stared at the bottle for a long moment, jaw tightening once before falling slack again. If I had taken this tomorrow... He stopped. Could not finish. Maya did not answer immediately. She never liked dramatics. Her father always said truth landed harder when spoken gently. You would have gotten very sick, she said quietly. Maybe worse. Nobody breathed for a second. Somewhere near the doorway, one of the younger security guards slowly lowered his phone. The room did not feel like gossip anymore. It felt sacred. Heavy. Human. Edward looked around the wellness room like he no longer recognized it. Stainless steel counters reflected pale light. Medication drawers stood half open like interrupted confessions. The warmth left behind from humming machines faded slowly into the cold basement air. Then he looked at Victoria. Really looked. She stood smaller somehow. Arms no longer crossed. Eyes wet but refusing to break. Why? He asked softly. No anger now. That somehow hurt more. Victoria swallowed. I was scared, she whispered. You were changing. Edward frowned slightly. Changing? Her laugh came out small and broken. After your surgery. She looked down. You started talking about stepping back. Selling assets. Giving more away. Her voice shook harder now. Everything we built started feeling temporary. Nathan lowered his head further. She said it would only slow you down, he said quietly. Not hurt you. Nobody answered him. Excuses sounded so small in rooms where trust had already died. Edward stood still for a long moment. Then nodded once. Not forgiveness. Not yet. Just acceptance that truth had finally arrived. He turned toward the security team. Call legal, he said quietly. And get the nurse out of the guest house. No shouting. No revenge. Just consequences. Real ones. Then, unexpectedly, he turned back toward Maya. The room shifted again. Staff watched silently now. Not curious anymore. Respectful. One of the housekeepers near the doorway wiped quietly at her eyes. Edward stepped closer until only a few feet stood between them. For the first time since she had worked here, he looked directly at her without distance in his eyes. I owe you my life, he said softly. Maya looked down for half a second. Embarrassed almost. You do not owe me anything, sir. Edward shook his head slowly. That is where you are wrong. His voice cracked slightly on the last word. Tiny. Human. I spent years walking past you. He glanced briefly at the silver tray still resting in her hands. The tray she had never put down. I saw a uniform. His eyes lifted again. Not a person. Silence settled over everyone. No one moved. Even the building itself seemed quieter now. Somewhere far above them, rain had stopped. Dawn light was beginning to creep faintly through the narrow basement windows, pale gold, replacing the long, cold blue of night. Maya finally gave a small nod. People miss things when they stop looking, she said gently. Not cruel. Not proud. Just true. Edward let out a breath that sounded heavier than exhaustion. Then, in front of everyone, security, staff, doctor, the woman who had once stood beside him, he reached for the basement door and held it open for Maya first. Nobody missed it. Nobody misunderstood what it meant. Maya paused briefly before stepping past him, silver tray still warm in her hands. Upstairs, the first light of morning touched the mansion windows. And for the first time in years, Edward Whitmore stood silently in his own house, realizing the strongest person there had been the one everyone taught themselves not to see.